Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 20. We are halfway through the season, just wrapping up week 7 of the football season. I hope you guys had better weeks than Stephen Hauschka and Catanzaro. That both chip shot misses, I think, are a record of overtime field goals missed consecutively for distance. But that game was horrible, if you ask me. But hopefully, neither here nor there, we're going to get into some news, some updates on some injuries, some sad news for those of you who are owners of a certain running back. And then we're going to get into our picks, our first picks of the week, for who you should be looking at for the waiver wire, who you should be spending your fab cash on. And so, once again, I am Justin, your host of the show. Join with me, as always, the founder of Skull King Fantasy Football, Ryan Skullrood.
Hey, everybody. How's it going tonight? I hope your fantasy weeks went pretty well.
So we will, like I said, we'll get started with the announcement that Ray Jennings, a.k.a. Arian Foster, has announced his retirement. This comes as a shock to me. This tells me that his injuries are way worse than what were originally reported, or he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. Ryan, what are your thoughts? I know we'll figure out more of this as this comes out, as this was just released later tonight, midway point through the football game. But tell me a little bit about what you think the ramifications are of this.
Well, obviously, J.J. is now the guy to own in Miami. As far as Foster goes, thank you for the Ray Jennings. The Ray Jennings. So I love the movie The Draft. Seriously, and that movie. Anytime I get close to fantasy football draft season, I've got that movie on, watching it twice a day. But anyways, back to Arian Foster. The guy was immensely talented. He couldn't stay healthy. He'd always had, how we talk about those soft tissue injuries, the hamstrings, the groin issue, then the torn groin that partially separated off of his leg, that he had to have surgically repaired. And then,
non-contact injury.
Yeah. Then tearing the Achilles, coming back from that, it was tough on him. And I think that he's finally realizing what a lot of people, who have been watching football guessed was coming soon anyways. And I think his head finally said, you know what, my body can't keep up. It's time to quit. Like I said, he had some amazing football season. I want to say he was a 4-time Pro Bowler. Amazing football player that, just couldn't seem to stay healthy. And he's, honestly, I know that a lot of people will miss having him on their roster. People who knew him from or had him on the rosters from years back, but not necessarily this year.
I really hope that this news is for the betterment of Arian Foster moving forward. We will all miss him as a football player. I know we're taking a little bit longer on this than we normally do on announcements, but to me, I give nothing but best wishes to Arian Foster moving forward. There are tons of retired football players who have medical and health concerns that are brought on by this very physical and violent game that we all love. But this is a real-world individual who's now going to have to deal with the ramifications of his list of injuries for the rest of his life. And we wish him nothing but the best moving forward, that he'll have nothing but a clean bill of health now that he's not playing such a violent game. But moving on to something a little bit more fantasy relevant moving forward. The Chargers head coach Mike McCoy says that rookie tight end Hunter Henry is going into the concussion protocol this week. I didn't watch that game, so I'm unaware of the hit that he may have taken. I know that this Hunter Henry has been kind of a huge rising star this season and kind of taken away from the Antonio Gates touches, especially in the end zone. I know a lot of people were excited to see Antonio Gates push for that touchdown record. Does this concern you at all, Ryan, with Hunter Henry going into the concussion call? Once again, I didn't see any sort of major hit that he took in the game.
Well, just looking at the notes, I didn't get to see it either. I just remember continually looking at my phone and all the notifications on how this game was going back and forth between games, since I don't have cable. Checking the NFL app and just saying Hunter Henry, or not saying Hunter Henry's name, saying pass incomplete to Antonio Gates, pass complete to Antonio Gates, pass incomplete to Antonio Gates. Nothing about Hunter Henry. And finally looking at the stats, 1 catch for 16 yards on 3 attempts. It looks like that he didn't actually report the symptoms until after the game was over. And so they're thinking that he's probably going to be more day-to-day than he will be week-to-week. So obviously it wasn't severe. It's a cause for a little bit of concern. But I think he'll end up being okay. He is still splitting with Antonio Gates. I think it very well could have been just game flow and how it was going. That they liked the matchups that Gates presented. I'm guessing is what happened in this game. Again, I haven't been able to actually watch any of the game tape, so I still think he's a good pick going forward. He's got a couple of tough matchups. They're San Diego's at Denver next week in Week 8, so that'll be a little bit tough. But he does have Tennessee and Miami, and then the bye week in Week 11. So he should be okay. I'm still running him out there as a starter. So
Hugh Jackson said that Corey Coleman will be able, or he's not sure whether or not he'll be able to practice this week. I have Corey Coleman out at least for another week. To me, the way the Cleveland Browns season has gone, there's no need or any logical reason to rush him back from that injury, especially as a receiver needing to actually use his hands to catch the ball. And so if he's available in your league, I think he'd be a late stash if you have space. I wouldn't drop somebody who's currently producing in order to go get him. But moving on, the Falcons have indicated Monday that there's a possibility of Tevin Coleman's hamstring injury to cost him extended time. What that means, we don't necessarily know.
Unless you're a Freeman owner, and then you're
Freeman owners
for joy.
Not rejoice because no one celebrates injuries, of course, but they're happy that it's more of a one-man show. My question is this: does that limit Freeman's ability because there's kind of this 1-2 punch now with only having the one punch? Does that affect Freeman? And the second part of my question is, Teron Ward even a thought to be someone to pick up so far this season? He's the third-string quarterback, running back.
The only reason I would pick up Ward is if you've got the space to burn and you don't think that Freeman can stay healthy. Freeman hasn't shown any signs of really slowing down at all this year. Tevin Coleman's the only one of the two that's really had much of injury issues so far this year. So for now, I'd hold off if you've got, unless you're, again, hoping for injury, which at this point, some people are desperate enough they'll pick up anyone they can if there's a chance they'll come in. But I think for right now, Freeman's the guy to own. That if you've got him, you're happy to see that he's going to be getting the production. I think he performed well last year as the full-time back until he got his concussion halfway through the season. So I think he'll be okay. Looking at some of their matchups, they've got Green Bay, Tampa Bay. Green Bay and Tampa Bay are gettable for Freeman, not necessarily for running wise, but more because he of his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And then Philadelphia. Then he's got the bye week 11. So then we'll see if Tevin Coleman is back by then. So
okay. LaShawn McCoy aggravated his hamstring once again and is once again listed as questionable. For those of you who are Mike Gillislee owners, just like me, this is aggravating news. You wish that there would be something more clear-cut. I know for myself, seeing the impact of LaShawn McCoy and the fact that he aggravated his hamstring, I would think that the Bills would have been more conservative and not started LaShawn McCoy because they could afford to rest him one game, even if they were to lose, hypothetically, thinking down the road. They obviously did lose Miami, but they could afford to lose, quote-unquote, one game in order to make sure that LaShawn McCoy was fully healthy. Now he's aggravated his hamstring again. Hamstrings often are worse the second time you've aggravated it. And so I think this is not a good sign. But once again, it's as clear as mud. And speaking on behalf of all Mike Gillislee owners, this is a little aggravating because knowing the Bills and Rex Ryan's methodology, he's probably going to throw him out there until he can't walk. But moving on.
Well, just go ahead. Let's be honest. Rex Ryan doesn't give a poop about what any fantasy football owners think.
No, I think he's on record saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
I think they have a tough matchup. I can see
it's more than poop.
If McCoy can go, I can see them putting him in next week anyways because they're going up against New England trying to gain a game in the division. And it'll be at home. Then the next week is the Monday night game against Seattle. That's going to be brutal on LaShawn McCoy in Seattle.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing McCoy getting a whole lot of moving around in that game. So he's got a couple of really tough matchups coming up the next couple of weeks, and I think it would be better for the depending, especially. If he's not going to be healthy enough to go in New England, let him sit so that he has a chance to go against Seattle because he'll have the extra day.
Moving on, once again, John Harbaugh said today that he's wanting to get Kenneth Dixon more involved. Once again, this is something I would wait and see. But if you've got someone else on your bench that literally scored 0 points this week, someone like a Sammy Coates who's probably not going to get anything until Ben Roethlisberger comes back. This would be something where I would easily do a switch out. That's, once again, just using an example from my roster. But ESPN is now going to be allowing Ty Montgomery to have running back eligibility. Yahoo also did this today. And so this is like a second flex on your roster. If you were lucky enough to be, quote-unquote, bad enough in your league in order to get Ty Montgomery, this does wonders for your roster in giving you that much more flexibility. Ryan, do you continue to see – I know a lot of people picked up Niall Davis. Do you continue to see Ty Montgomery being the running back even if and when Niall Davis gets up to speed on the roster, on the playbook?
I think so. I think that Ty Montgomery is – I think he's going to be the running back. I'm actually looking at Yahoo. Yahoo officially on the website has. I think it's maybe next week or maybe the next couple of days. As of right now, he's still listed as a Green Bay wide receiver, not wide receiver, running back.
That'll probably change.
Yeah, when everyone's starting to put in their waivers and everything, when they actually start.
Plus, when the whole week is finished, a lot of times Yahoo will update any sort of positional changes. The rare occasion that changes often happens on a Tuesday anyway. So,
well, I'm looking at all the places he's going to be changed over. I think Montgomery is going to stay in the running back. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers says he thinks that he's a running back. So Aaron Rodgers says, I think he's a
big running back.
So, yeah, I mean, he's got speed, he's got size. They're changing him to running back. Let's see, Montgomery has been moved to running back on FanDuel. We moved to running back on RotoWorld's depth chart as well. But yeah, I mean, if you were lucky enough to get him, I think I got him in one league. So, yeah, he's you definitely want to be holding on to him. So,
going through a couple of these really quick, Marvin Jones expects Tyler Eifert's ankle to get better and his role to expand for Week 8. The Cardinals expect John Brown to be back for Week 8. I know The expectations for John Brown were high this week, were high this year, but considering a couple of injuries and the headaches, that has yet to manifest itself.
Well, and don't forget for John Brown now, Jerron Brown, who is basically kind of the first backup behind him, tore his ACL in the game last night.
There were times where Jerron Brown was looking better than John Brown.
Yeah. So,
but Matt Jones could see his carries reduced due to fumbling issues. This is something where if you are a Matt Jones owner, I'm not too worried because Robert Kelly, though he was kind of a sneaky pick for me in week 1, hasn't really shown a lot. With them using Thompson in the passing game, this is going to come like a murky Oakland Raiders backfield, or the previous Oakland Raiders backfield, now with Latavius Murray once again resuming the role as a starter. But I don't see this as anything to really move on. Maybe if you have a better running back 2 option than Matt Jones, maybe you sit him in certain situations, but I don't think you go out and get Robert Kelly in this situation.
Not yet. It's something you definitely want to keep an eye on. But yeah, Chris, if you're going to take someone from that backfield, go with Chris Thompson.
Jordan Reed has been cleared to resume practice on Wednesday. This is giving a little bit more indication that he should be able to play for Week 8. No clear-cut indications, once again, still early in the week. Jay Cutler has now been cleared to return. And Brian Hoyer, I believe I saw today, apologies for not getting 100% accurate on this one, but I saw that Brian Hoyer is looking to be back, even though he had an injury in the Thursday night game. Ryan, do you have that?
Yeah, I've got that. Hoyer, I believe, is now on IR.
I was way off.
No, they placed him on IR today.
Okay.
Fracture, with the fractured forearm. Early Monday reports that Hoyer would only miss 6 weeks as opposed to 8. We're billed as good news, but Hoyer's placed on the IR, knocks him out for 8 weeks anyway. We'd be shocked to see Hoyer play again this season. So I don't know who the number 3 quarterback in Chicago is. I think it may still be Jimmy Clausen.
I think so. Not 100% sure.
But at least with Cutler, Alshon Jeffrey will start getting targeted again.
Alshon Jeffrey owners are excited.
Yeah. So yeah, if you've got Alshon, if you can maybe trade for Alshon Jeffrey, because of if you've got the necessary pieces to maybe get him at a little bit of a value, simply because of how bad it's been for him the last few weeks. If you can maybe sneak that one, go ahead and do it. I've got one league that I may try to do it. I've got a decent wide receiver core, but it never hurts to try to upgrade a little bit.
Matt Barkley is now the second string quarterback.
Then never mind.
Obviously not. Not draftable, or you don't pick him up. You're not going to pick him up on the waivers.
Then you hope and pray that Cutler stays healthy.
Yeah, and if Cutler goes down, you've been Cleveland.
Yeah.
So, or you've been Clevelanded. I'm trying to make that like a verb. I got to work on that a little bit more. But based on initial MRI, belief is that the Jets' former starting quarterback, Geno Smith, tore his ACL, which I kind of feel bad for him because he was sitting behind Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was doing literally nothing, and they still wouldn't give him the ball. I still think Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback, but based off the way their season was going, obviously I don't blame anybody for trying to do something different. And any other team, this would be less of a story because Fitzpatrick held out for so long, and I think that's what bought him a little bit more time after that 6-interception game and having 9 interceptions in 3 weeks. But this affects the locker room a little bit because Fitzpatrick ran his mouth a little bit in the press conference. I'm a little less negative, I guess, is maybe the way to put it. I'm not as quote-unquote angry or disappointed with how he handled it. because people want their athletes to be real. Don't give me these basic answers, the predictable answers. Team. He showed real emotion, and I think what's hypocritical is people want that, and then they get angry at Fitzpatrick for doing it because his name's Fitzpatrick and he had a bad game, he wasn't doing well, and now people have just called him a career second-string quarterback. Well, he's been a serviceable quarterback. There's only so many elite-level guys. I don't know what you're expecting from Fitzpatrick to be anything more than a top or a 20 to 30 quarterback who will have some upside in games. If you're expecting anything more than that, but that's still a starting quarterback in the NFL. Sorry for my rant there, Ryan. Tell me a little bit what you think. Does this help the Jets having Fitzpatrick back and maybe a little bit of a chip on his shoulder moving forward?
The only person I think it really helps is Brandon Marshall. He's still the only one. He's still going to get massive amounts of targets. Quincy Enunwa hasn't really stepped up with Eric Decker being out. Bilal Powell and Matt Forte have. I mean, Bilal Powell's he had a bad week he's had a bad couple of weeks. Forte has fallen off the map just like I predicted he would. I think that the Jets are a mess. Forte had another 30 rushes for 100 yards and a TD. So that good old 3-yard average a game, or average he's not going to last the rest of the season at that kind of use. They don't have much of a choice. It's not like they can go to Hackenberg or Bryce Petty to try to save their season. They may at some point just go that direction to see what they've got out of them, but they're at this point their best option to have any sort of competition or be in games at all is to continue with Fitzpatrick. Yeah,
until they know they're out, and they know they're out.
Well, at this point, at 2-5, they should know they're out.
But still, there's still that every football coach believes that there's still a chance. They're all professionals. Any team can beat any other team on any given day. Just look at Miami against Pittsburgh. No one saw that coming. Everyone picked Pittsburgh in that game, except for those who live in Florida. But Fitzpatrick's got to deliver at this point if he wants to even be considered a starter next season anywhere. But moving on really quickly, the last three we want to talk about. Thomas Rawls is still expected to be out for another 2 weeks. Josh McCown has a chance, quote-unquote, to return this week. I was just looking at their depth chart right now. Starting quarterback is Cody Kessler, but he got banged up a little bit in the game. It could be Kevin Hogan being the starting quarterback this week against the Jets. Once again, still just
I can't help but laugh.
I can't laugh because it's literally people just getting pummeled. But it's one of those things that you just like. What are you supposed to do? If I am Hugh Jackson, I'm putting my hands up in the air and saying, "What do I do?" You can't keep anybody healthy.
Yeah, and
I'm firing my trainer. I don't know what else to do.
Well, and it's a lot of these things are it's a broken arm. So I mean it's in Corey Coleman, getting hit and having a broken collarbone in Josh McCown. RG3 is just plain fragile. Let's be honest, he is fragile, and got pummeled and tore up his non-throwing shoulder. I mean, these are types of injuries that are going to happen in a game like in a violent game like this. So, I mean, you can't blame Hugh Jackson. He's doing the best that he can. I think that they're doing what they can to try to develop some talent. We'll figure out who he picks for number 1 overall next year.
Yeah. Let's see. Taking a look at the last one here. Des Bryant was reported doing quote-unquote everything during Monday's practice. As long as he's not making any sort of soup, I don't see him missing next week's game. It looks like all the Yeah, but all indications are he should be there for the game against Philadelphia on the 30th next week. That wraps us up for the news and some notes. Took a little bit longer than normal because we wanted to pay some respects to Arian Foster. But Ryan, hit us up for our advertising, and then we'll get into our picks of the week.
All right. Well, we keep going over these two every week, but we want to make sure we throw these out again. NFLshop.com is the official online store of the National Football League. Offers the biggest selection of officially licensed NFL apparel and merchandise online. Shoppers looking for Nike jerseys and the game day collection featuring apparel from Nike and headwear from New Era will find what they want for all 32 teams at NFLshop.com. Seriously, guys, if you get onto skulkingfootball.com and take a look at and click on skulkingfootball.com/NFL shop and click on the links that we've got on there. The salute to service headwear. I mean, these hats are stinking awesome. I mean, I love the gray with the camo. I mean, they've got beanies, they've got hats, looks like they've got flex fits, they've got flat bills. You look at the jerseys that they've got. Seriously, sweatshirts, anything you want. They really are. I mean, they have great stuff. They've got the color rush jerseys, the hats, the T-shirts. Get on there. Go to skulkingfootball.com/NFL shop. That's all one word right there. And you can actually sign up through the link on there to get 10% off of your first order. And I believe you can also sign up, depending on how much you order, you may be able to also get free shipping. So make sure to sign up for that. And our other little advertisement here is for Yahoo Daily. Yahoo Daily Fantasy is the industry leader in fair play for DFS platforms. Yahoo makes it easier for the little guy like you and me to be able to compete in their daily fantasy contests with major aspects to their fair play rules that you're not going to find on other websites, like limiting entries to a maximum of 10 per user per contest, plus another provision that you cannot have more than 1% of the total entries in a contest. So if you are playing on Yahoo and there's only 200 people allowed in a contest, you can only put in 2 lineups. That's it. So you're not going to be like on the other major sites where you've got the pros entering in 10, 15, 20, 30 lineups, where they've got every possible variation of lineup that maximized thrown in there. You don't have that on Yahoo. They also identify veteran players with a badge so you can see who you're going up against in contests, and they have prohibited scripting tools to upload or edit entries. So really they are doing everything they can to level the playing field for guys like you and me to be able to have fun, play some DFS, and even make a little bit of money in the process. Make sure to, again, go to skulkingfootball.com/Yahoo Daily. It's one word. And we've got a couple links on there with an opportunity to maybe even get a free premium membership on Skulking Football. So go ahead and get on there again. That's skulkingfootball.com/Yahoo Daily.
Okay, moving on to our waiver wire picks of the week. Once again, these are guys who are owned in less than 50% of leagues, according to Yahoo leagues. A lot of these are based off of PPR pickups, but I do have a couple that would work either way. Starting with the running back position, had a great game tonight. Devontae Booker is someone to watch for going forward. He was heavily involved tonight. I believe him being involved helped CJ Anderson a ton. He didn't have to do the workhorse load. Plus, Houston was just giving up yards in bunches. But tonight, Devontae Booker had 17 rushing attempts, 83 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to get more and more touches because he was successful with it, but also because the coach was going to get them more touches. Highly successful. They want to take a little bit off Trevor Siemian's shoulders, so look for Devontae Booker to continue this, not necessarily to this extent, but look for him to continue to get 12-plus touches moving forward. Plus, San Diego, Oakland, New Orleans are his next 3 games. Not exactly the Minnesota Vikings when it comes to stopping the run.
He actually had more carries than CJ Anderson.
I know.
But CJ also went 16 for 107 in a TD. So
Yeah.
so
He got more. He got bigger yards.
Yeah, he was able to get more of the big yards. But definitely still something to watch out. Devontae Booker, they basically split the snaps evenly. So, I'm with you on Devontae Booker. He's only 36% owned on Yahoo, but the only league that he's not owned in any of my leagues is one where there's only 8 teams. So he's anyways. I kind of had 2, and since you were talking about the, kind of a PPR versus standard league, I may actually do that here with mine as well. In terms of PPR, all the leagues I go, Chris Thompson. I want to say, where do I actually have how much he's owned? Oh, crap, I don't have how much he's owned in if you could look that up for me real quick, Justin. Chris Thompson.
Chris Thompson.
Chris Thompson is, he's the kind of the PPR back in Washington behind Matt Jones. We talked earlier about Matt Jones fumbling issues. That he is a problem that's come through last year. That they worked with him a lot over the preseason. He's not getting, Thompson's not getting a lot of carries, but in terms of receiving, he's getting, a minimum of, 4. Go back the last 4 games. So October 2nd, 4 targets, 3 targets last week, or 3 targets against Philadelphia. He had 7 this last week for 40 yards. He's only had 2 TDs, 1 receiving and 1 running, but he is getting some rushing attempts as well. This last week he got 12 for 73. He was the main guy to come in when Matt Jones was struggling. So he ended up with 19 touches for 113 yards. He is definitely a guy to watch. Going into, or let's see if we can actually show. Oh shoot, I don't have it on there.
He did get 12 carries.
Yeah, so
73 yards.
Let me get. Oh shoot, I don't have him on here. Oh well. He's. Chris Thompson. I think if you're in trouble in your leagues in PPR, Chris Thompson's definitely a guy that you really should be picking up or at least looking at, in order to try to pull your season around depth wise. Oh, here we go. He's only owned in 13% of leagues, but in the last 2 weeks he's had 18 points. 11.5. This is full point PPR, so 18 points, 11.5, 8.5, 13. So he's trending up, and he's got the bye week in week 9. Cincinnati, they've got the London game this next week, so it's early Sunday morning. So if he's available, I'd at least take a look. So.
I have 2 left. One's really just a deep one to keep aware of. Once again, Mike Gillislee is someone that you guys should target. If Rex Ryan continues to do what he's doing to LaShawn McCoy and continuing to run him out there, even though he's injured, Gillislee will be the starter because LaShawn McCoy will be on IR at this point. But Gillislee, once again, watch the reports. I would not look at starting him until there's clear indication that LaShawn McCoy is out. But he should be someone that should be on everybody's rosters because of how horrible the offense was this last week, because they couldn't run the ball, because it's really all that they have in Buffalo. If they can't get the run going, they have no offense. I'm not looking at grabbing any sort of receivers with Woods hurt. I'm not looking at grabbing the tight end because he only got 2 catches this last week. And so I'm really only looking at the running game and the quarterback situation of Buffalo, really not looking too much at the quarterback situation, but more the running back situation in Buffalo. The other one is to keep an eye on Kadeem Carey. He's beginning to take touches away from Jordan Howard, even though Jordan Howard had 2 monstrous games when he was named the starter. Once again, with Jay Cutler coming back, things may still be up in the air. Kadeem Carey, once again, I believe has more time with the offense, with Jordan Howard being the latecomer to the offense. Kadeem Carey is beginning to show more and more touches and is outperforming Howard right now on less touches. So I'm looking at Carey to be someone that should be watched. If you've got a stashable spot, he should be grabbed, because who knows, this next week or maybe in a week or two or after the bye in week 9 for Chicago, he could be the starter moving forward. And at that point, they have Tampa Bay, the Giants, Tennessee, San Francisco, Detroit. Not the greatest because they've got Tennessee on there, but not bad. So,
yeah, my kind of standard league pick would be Matt Asiata. He's only owned in 21% of leagues. Here's the deal with Asiata. You need to look to see what's going on with Jerick McKinnon after he injured his ankle in the game on Sunday. Then sat out a couple series, came back, re-injured it again, and then sat out because it was a blowout. So I think watch what's going on with Jerick McKinnon. Matt Asiata, again, if you're desperate, Matt Asiata is a guy to look at. They're going up against Chicago, who's had a little bit of trouble with teams that can run the ball. They've done better against teams that pass the ball. So if Asiata is going to be, he's not a mow him over kind of guy. He's a plotter. He'll get 3-4 yards a carry, 3.5 yards a carry. He's the guy that's going to vulture TDs. And if he's the only real running back, any goal line position that they get into, it's going to be Matt Asiata. So he's a guy to look at in standard leagues if you're desperate for a running back. They're playing in the Monday night game, so you'll have one extra game to wait to kind of see how that position is going. But that's where I would go.
Moving on to the wide receivers, my first one is Cole Beasley. This one I kind of fudged a little bit on. He's only owned in 53% of leagues. That might have had to do with the bye this last week. But if Dak Prescott is on the field and is the starting quarterback, Cole Beasley is fantasy valuable. If Romo comes back and starts, that's a completely different story. But with Dak Prescott starting, Cole Beasley should be in someone's starting lineup in your league. He is at least a wide receiver 3 or a flex position, in my opinion, with how he is producing. Ryan, tell me who you've got at a wide receiver position.
For me at wide receiver, we're actually going back to Washington. Jamison Crowder. Again, he's one of those guys that is more of a PPR guy. He's not going to get you a ton of yards. If your league has return yards, Jamison Crowder had better be owned.
Yes.
If we look at what he has done in the last few weeks, last week 7 catches on 9 targets for 108 yards. The week before, 4 catches for 52, 3 for 35, but he also had 2 punt returns for 89 yards and a TD. He's only had, if we look at his points, this is in a full point PPR with your standard return yards, which is going to be 25 yards per point. He has done since week 1, 12.4, 17.1, 20.1, 4.1. That's his only down week. Then 16 points, 13.8, 17.8. He is a dynamic player that, again, if you have return yards, this guy needs to be owned. He gets the job done. He is highly targeted, especially with Jordan Reed out. He runs a lot of those underneath routes that Reed does when he's in there. So I like Jamison Crowder, and again, he provides the extra mobility, I guess you could say, with the fact that he does return yards. So, and he's only 37% owned.
My other pick, obviously, may come as no shock to anybody who paid attention to the Thursday night football game with the Packers. Devontae Adams, currently owned in only 19% of leagues on Yahoo, should be picked up in the other 81, in my opinion, because Davante Adams right now is outperforming Jordy Nelson. He is the number 2 receiver right now, but with the Packers having to throw the ball, there's just, Aaron Rodgers threw the ball like 56 times. And he's only got really 4 targets. So that's so many targets per receiver. And Davante Adams caught 13 catches, had a monstrosity of a game.
He was targeted 16 times in that game.
38.2. He got I don't even think Antonio Brown has scored that high. A.J. Green, I think, has, and I think Julio Jones has. But this is a monstrosity of a game. And he's going up against Atlanta, but the only Atlanta corner you really have to worry about is Trufant, who won't be guarding him. Then he's got Indiana. Tennessee showed a little bit of weakness this last week. Washington, Philadelphia. So he's not going up against the gauntlet. His bye's already done, so you don't have to worry about losing him. His playoffs have me a little worried because Seattle in week 14, Chicago in 15, and Minnesota in week 16. So he's not someone that might help you in the playoffs, but he's definitely someone who's going to help you over the next couple of weeks. He has 5 touchdowns already this season. That is inexcusable that he's only owned in 19% of leagues.
Well, and here's the problem with Davante Adams is because what really, because I owned him in 1 or 2 leagues earlier. What really did it for Davante Adams and why he is low owned, he wasn't even expected to play in the game against Chicago. He was on the injury report, still recovering from a concussion. I cannot tell you how many guys on the Vox team that, as we were following, for their daily fantasy lineups, that we were all following on the Thursday night game, and just going crazy because Davante Adams scored another effing touchdown with another catch. This guy wasn't even supposed to play. We all had Ty Montgomery had a good game, and Cobb ended up having a good game, but none of us went with Davante Adams in any DFS lineups because he wasn't even supposed to play. So I think that Davante Adams is he's going to be somewhat matchup dependent. Like I said, I think these next couple of weeks work well for him because of how much they're going to have to be passing the ball. But I think he's kind of a coin flip. Go ahead and get him. But yeah, he's outperforming Jordy. I think that he's now to the point because last year he's not meant to be a number 1 by himself. I think he's to the point where now that they've got Jordy taking a lot of the pressure off with the deep routes, and have Randall Cobb there, and what seems to be a decent quote-unquote running game with Ty Montgomery, that's what's opening things up for Davante Adams and giving him some success. So we'll see if it continues. I think that week 7 may be a bit of an aberration. I think he's more of the, what he did in week 5, 8 targets, 5 catches for 85 yards. So
going on to the tight end section, I'm going to do this one very, very brief because I'm tired of talking about Jack Doyle. His percentage of ownership needs to go up. Right now, he's only owned at 31% of leagues. That jumped 20% on Saturday and is currently owned in 31% of leagues. Right now, he's the number 2 receiver for Andrew Luck. There's T.Y. Hilton and there's Jack Doyle. I don't know who else they're going to try and get the ball to at this point. But for me, Jack Doyle is a temporary fix to a long-term problem. If you do not have a tight end, obviously you can stream Jack Doyle for the next couple of weeks, but there's no real way of knowing what's going to happen or change when and if Dwayne Allen comes back after the bye. But for right now, if you are needing a tight end to score you some points, go get Jack Doyle. If you don't, it's on you, not on me. And so my other tight end to really look at is CJ Fiedorowicz. I know he didn't have the greatest of games tonight, but he was playing Denver. But the point I want to emphasize is he's getting 7+ targets in every game over the last 3 or 4 weeks. His schedule lightens up so dramatically. He doesn't have to play a tough defense. I don't think he's going to play a top 10 defense the rest of the year, and his playoff matchup is beautiful. CJ Fiedorowicz is becoming a higher target value for Brock Osweiler. He should be someone, once again, sneaky pick. He may have been picked up in your league last week because he had a good week in week 6. But if he's not picked up, he would be my more long-term choice to fix. But Jack Doyle is going to get you more points in the short term, in my opinion.
Yeah, you took both of mine, so
My bad.
Well, I think
you got more quarterbacks than I do. So,
but I mean, let's look at this. You and I have been saying Jack Doyle for the last 3 weeks now, especially after Dwayne Allen went out, and yet he's still not getting owned. Pick up Jack Doyle, for crying out loud.
The only time we did not say Jack Doyle was
after his week 1 explosion. We were like, this is kind of a
when everything went back to normal, and then maybe week 4. But really, Jack Doyle, a lot of it is kind of the inconsistency with the line and Andrew Luck being sacked more than any other quarterback in the league. But now, with Andrew Luck's options drastically depleted, he's only got 2 real targets that are going to get more than 10-plus targets in a game.
Yeah, with Dwayne Allen out, you have to go Jack Doyle. Yeah. With Dante Moncrief out, Jack Doyle's getting those end zone looks because they have no other big men to throw to.
Nope.
So, watch for Dante Moncrief. He should be coming back sometime in the next couple weeks, but
probably after the bye.
And like Justin was saying, CJ Fiedorowicz, we were on him last week, not just because he had a big week, but looking back the last few weeks. Again, 8 targets, 4 receptions, 61. 7 targets, 6 catches, 85 and a TD. Tonight, 7 targets and 5 receptions. He only had 35 yards, but that's because Brock Osweiler wasn't getting the ball down the field. I think that CJ Fiedorowicz becomes he may become this year's Gary Barnidge. Maybe not to the point that Gary Barnidge was last year, but I think that with the way that the rest of the schedule plays out for them, Fiedorowicz could be the breakout tight end. That's kind of been, because how many years how long has Fiedorowicz been around? He's played. This is his 3rd year. Those 3rd-year tight ends. He already has. He's already in 7 games has more yards than he had the rest of his career in his first 2 years combined.
He has outscored. Granted, this is PPR. He has outscored Hopkins the last 2 weeks.
Yep. Seriously, CJ Fiedorowicz, get on him now while he's only 8% owned. He has Detroit next week. Pick up CJ Fiedorowicz. Yes. He has Detroit, who is the number 2 or number 3 worst defense against tight ends.
Even Osweiler can throw 2 touchdowns against Detroit.
Correct. So pick up CJ Fiedorowicz. Like we told you last week, pick him up. Jack Doyle, but for the maybe temporary, but CJ Fiedorowicz for the rest of the season. He has a bye in week 9, and then seriously, let's go over the schedule. Week 10, Jacksonville. Week 11, Oakland. Week 12, San Diego. Week 13, Green Bay. Week 14, Indianapolis. 15, Jacksonville again. 16, Cincinnati. You talk about a phenomenal schedule in terms of going up against cruddy defenses for the rest of the season. Pick up CJ Fiedorowicz now while you can.
Ryan, we need to get going on a quarterback situation. We've only got a few minutes left. Give me really, really briefly your 2 quarterbacks that you like. I've only got 1. I'm doing a shot in the dark, but tell me who you like this week as streaming quarterbacks.
Well, kind of looking at this again, I want to go back. I was thinking, maybe Brock Osweiler has a good matchup against Detroit. He didn't perform all that well tonight against Denver, but Denver wanted to, just pound the snot out of him for leaving. So, I think that he was in for a bad game. I think he could have a pretty decent game at home next week against Detroit just because Detroit's defense is so bad. And then the other guy that I was looking at is Alex Smith. Remember how last week I told you all you really need out of a streaming quarterback is about 250 yards and 2 TDs to get you in a standard league about 16 points? Well, what do you know? He got 214 yards, like I told you, and 2 TDs, one of which, like we said, would be a dump-off pass to a running back, which Spencer Ware got a receiving touchdown, and he finishes with 21 points. So Alex Smith has another good matchup this next week. Let's see, who's he going up against? Oh, shoot, I missed it. Against Indianapolis, whose defense is also decimated. So as long as they can keep the ground game going with Spencer Ware, that should open up some decent pass looks for him against Indianapolis.
My quarterback that I like this week, for the sole fact that it's a giant shot in the dark, and I like it when a player gets riled up and wants to go out and play the next game. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to have a good day against Cleveland. First and foremost, it is the Cleveland defense who is depleted. Their offense is massively depleted and will not have really the staying power to keep the Jets off the field. I think Fitzpatrick throws for 3 touchdowns in this game. I think he is a man on a mission at this point. He should have been a man on a mission at the beginning of the year when he only got a 1-year deal. But I think now that there's a little bit more angst and pep in his step, I think he's going to have a bigger game. I am seeing Fitzpatrick going off for 3 touchdowns. That's a very, very bold statement. If it comes back to bite me, so be it. But I think Fitzpatrick's going to have a big day against Cleveland. So,
well, and again, let's go back. You're looking at streaming quarterbacks. The reason you're looking at a streaming quarterback is because you drafted well with your wide receivers and your tight ends and your running backs. So all you're looking for is 250 yards and 2 TDs, enough to score about value, maybe a little bit above, to let the rest of your team finish off your opponent. If you can get that out of Ryan Fitzpatrick, which I believe you can, about 250 and 2 TDs, maybe more, against a crappy Cleveland defense, I think that's a good pick.
Okay, well, that looks like it wraps up our show. Once again, we want to thank you for joining us at the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. Once again, that was the waiver picks for the beginning of Week 8 in the season. Hopefully your second half of your season goes better than your first half, regardless of how bad or good your first half was. But once again, the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast has been brought to you by Vox DFS Firelines at voxdfs.com. I'm your host, Justin Skullrood.
And I'm Ryan Skullrood.
Have a good week, guys.
All right, we'll talk to you later.